Massive protests in Israel demanding a ceasefire after the death of 6 more hostages in Gaza. Tropical storm Yagi causes flooding in the Philippines as Hong Kong Observatory considers issuing the standby signal number 1 sometime tomorrow. And the new school year starts for local students. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Tens of thousands of grieving and angry Israelis surged into the streets on Sunday night after 6 more hostages were found dead in Gaza. The protesters are demanding Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reach a ceasefire agreement with Hamas to bring the remaining 101 captives home. This as residents of Beirut's southern suburbs have been scrambling to make contingency plans since an Israeli airstrike on an apartment building killed a top Hezbollah commander, sparking fears of a full-scale war. Tracy Furness has more.
Angry protesters clashed with police Sunday night after 6 more hostages were found dead in Gaza. Some protesters climbing down onto a Tel Aviv highway, blocking traffic and lighting a bonfire. The mass outpouring appeared to be the largest such demonstration in 11 months of war, and protesters said it felt like a possible turning point. Israel's largest trade union, the Histadrut, further pressured the government by calling a general strike for Monday, the first since the war with Hamas started on October 7th. It aims to shut down or disrupt major sectors of the economy, such as banking and healthcare, as well as the country's main airport. Dozens of ambassadors and diplomats joined a vigil for the 6 hostages whose bodies were recovered from Gaza on Sunday. Signing a guest book at Israeli Hostages and Missing Families Forum headquarters.
This is one of the saddest days since October 7th. Waking up and receiving confirmation that 6 hostages were cruelly and brutally killed by Hamas in just the last couple of days is incredibly painful.
A candle lit at a vigil in Jerusalem for one of the dead hostages, Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Polin, a native of Berkeley, California. A banner reads, "Bring Hirsch home now."
Hirsch grew up here. The last night that we celebrated with him was the holiday of Simchat Torah, the evening before he went to the Nova Festival, and he was dancing on this floor right here the night before he left. And that's the last that all of the congregation saw him.
Meanwhile, in the town of Ra'anana in central Israel, a funeral took place for hostage Almog Sarusi, who was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival. He had been with his girlfriend of 5 years at the time. His mother saying, "You were abandoned on and on, hour after hour, 331 days. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would hold Hamas accountable for killing the hostages in cold blood. He blamed the militant group for the stalled negotiations, saying, "Whoever murders hostages doesn't want to deal." Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Palestinian militants killed 3 Israeli police officers on Sunday when they opened fire on a vehicle in the occupied West Bank, where Israel has carried out large-scale raids in recent days. Police confirmed that all 3 killed were officers and added the assailants were able to slip away. One of the officers killed was 61-year-old Ronnie Shakuri from the town of Sidrat near Gaza border. His daughter, also a police officer, was killed by Hamas in the October 7th attack. A little-known militant group calling itself Khalil al-Rahman Brigade claimed responsibility for the shooting on Sunday. Later in the day, Israeli forces encircled a home in Hebron, where the army said a suspected attacker was believed to be hiding. Soldiers moved in on the structure, repeatedly opening fire and tossing grenades inside. Soldiers later removed the body of a man from the building, at one point turning towards onlookers and journalists, firing several warning shots towards them. In the Philippines, a storm unleashed heavy rain, flooding many northern areas, killing 2 people and prompting the government to suspend classes in the capital. Authorities also warned thousands of residents to prepare to evacuate from flood-prone villages along key rivers. People were wading through waist-high waters, floating their belongings down the street on improvised rafts. Tropical storm Yagi blew winds of 115 kilometers an hour in parts of Quezon province, southeast of Manila, with sustained winds of up to 75 kilometers per hour. The storm was moving northwestward near the eastern coast of the northern region of Luzon, where warnings of flash floods and landslides were in place. 2 residents died in Naga City, where floodwaters swamped several communities. The Hong Kong Observatory is considering issuing the standby signal number 1 between tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night, owing to the effects of tropical storm Yagi. The tropical storm is expected to move over the South China Sea after hitting Luzon in the Philippines. Weather authorities noted the possibility of Yagi being upgraded to either a typhoon or a severe typhoon, as it is expected to enter within 400 kilometers of Hong Kong in the coming days. This as the city continues to experience sweltering heat from the effects of an anticyclone, with most areas recording temperatures of 33 degrees Celsius or above. Meanwhile, meteorological authorities in Macau forecast that Yagi will enter within 800 kilometers of the enclave between tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night, and the tropical cyclone signal number 1 is expected to be issued. Today marks the start of the new school year. While many youngsters may feel excitement about this time of the year, some struggle with academic pressure. A number of schools said they will strengthen emotional support for their students. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Students returned to school today at this elementary school in Suwanshan at around 7 this morning, many of them holding different views about the start of the new school year. This student said she's happy but nervous at the same time. This girl noted her excitement about seeing her friends again, while this boy, who is about to enter a secondary school, feels a little pressured about the change. The academic pressure applies to many in the city's secondary student body as well. Scores of youngsters could be seen waiting outside the school before it even opened. This student is worried about the upcoming Diploma of Secondary Education examinations and is anxious about getting into university. While this student is thrilled about the opportunity to visit the mainland as part of the school's citizenship and social development subjects. Noticing a surge in students' emotional needs at this time of the year, some schools are planning to implement stress relief measures in a bid to improve their mental health. Lam Wai Choi, principal of Suwanshan St. Bonaventure Catholic Primary School, said teachers will reward students' good behavior with gifts and relaxing activities. This, as Secretary for Education Christine Choi emphasized the importance of mental health while attending a school opening ceremony in Tunmoon this morning. Referring to the 4 R's mental health charter with emphasis on rest, relaxation, relationship, and resilience, she encouraged students to take time to rest, relax, build healthy relationships, and strengthen their immune system. Meanwhile, more than 420 schools are set to roll out a series of mental health-related measures that include offering students enough time for relaxation and school life balance. Students could also vent their frustration on dolls like this one placed in these schools. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Welcome back. For the first time since World War II, a German far-right party has claimed victory in one of the nation's state elections. The anti-immigration AfD, or Alternative for Germany party, took a third of the vote in the eastern region of Thuringia. The party is anti-Islamic, anti-immigration, and have said they want to stop weapons support for Ukraine. David Garrett reports.
Far-right success in the east, arms raised aloft for AFD chairperson Bjorn Höcke in Thuringia. In this state, Höcke and his party won almost a third of the vote, 9 points clear of the conservative Christian Democratic Union. A comfortable victory, the first far-right party to win a German state parliament election since World War II. Höcke strode into Thuringia's state offices amid well-wishers and photographers with the air of a confident man who just claimed a major victory. He had secured a seat because he was top of the party list. A poll says nearly 40% of under 30s voted for AFD. Speaking to national television, Höcke told them, "We are the new People's Party in Thuringia. We want to govern and have the right to govern," Höcke said. "People do not want business as usual. They want change. I'm curious to see how the old parties will form a losing coalition." AFD came a close second in neighbouring but more populous Saxony. AFD representative Jorge Urban cast his vote Sunday, predicting a victory. The Christian Democratic Union managed to hold on in what the party had called the most important vote in a generation. The parties that form the national ruling coalition were on the end of dreadful results in both states. Results that will have been carefully monitored in Berlin. Chancellor Olaf Scholz called the results bitter. He will defend his position in the Reichstag in federal elections next September. The national newspapers on display and newsagents called it an earthquake in the east and slap to mainstream politicians. These commuters in Berlin had mixed opinions. This resident called AFD horrible and extremist. Another said she hopes their politics does not come to Brandenburg and she will try to prevent it. But this woman praised AFD, saying they deserve it. If the current government can't reach people, it's their own fault, she said. It remains to be seen if all will be good in Germany, with political divisions apparent in the world's third largest economy. David Garrett, TVB News.
The chairman of Taiwan's People's Party, Ko Wen-je, was released without bail on Monday. He was arrested on suspicion of corruption involving a redevelopment project while he was Taipei mayor. The chairman of Taiwan People's Party was released in the early hours of today after the Taipei District Court said evidence provided by prosecutors was not sufficient to prove Ko had a corruption role in the core Pacific City project. Speaking to the press, Ko stressed he had not intervened in the project when he was the mayor of Taipei. Parties clashed in South Korea's parliament over a decision by prosecutors to name former President Moon Jae-in as a suspect in a bribery case. The raid on Moon's daughter's house on Friday was part of an investigation to find out if Moon's former son-in-law, identified only by his surname Seo, was given a job at Thai Easterjet in 2018. Prosecutors are investigating allegations that Seo received preferential treatment in securing the role in return for arranging key government meetings for the politician who founded the airline. The ruling People's Party says the law needs to run its course, adding that it's inevitable there will be a direct investigation into the ex-leader. The opposition, Moon's Democratic Party, called it petty retaliation. Pope Francis will arrive in Jakarta tomorrow, unveiling his four-nation trip to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Singapore. The tour will be the longest and most challenging of his pontificate, with peace and interfaith unity as the overarching theme. This as the Vatican seeks to improve its relations with Beijing, which wields growing influence in Asia. Danny Cho has the story.
Banners and posters welcoming Pope Francis are common sights in Jakarta, capital of Indonesia, which is one of the world's most populous Muslim-majority nations. The 87-year-old pontiff will land at Soekarno-Hatta Airport tomorrow. Police have ramped up security in the capital city, while excitement for the visit has been mounting among locals. Both Muslims and Catholics told the media about their anticipation for the papal visit, the first the country is going to host in more than 3 decades. Calling it a lifetime opportunity, people hope the visit will forge religious tolerance in Indonesia and build harmony in the country. Pope Francis will visit the Merdeka Palace, meet with Indonesian President Joko Widodo, greet the local Catholic communities and lead a grand mass with an attendance of over 86,000 worshippers. Originally planned for 2020 but postponed by the pandemic, the Pope's apostolic journey in Asia and Oceania would be marked by agenda items such as poverty, climate change, interfaith dialogue, and geopolitical interest. Before his departure, the Pope had decried civilian deaths in Ukraine and Gaza and begged for peace during the weekly Angelus prayer at St. Peter's Square. He also condemned the recent attacks on Burkina Faso. The Vatican has stressed fraternity between believers of different religions, making peace and interfaith unity the centerpiece of the tour. The first stop of the Pope's Indonesia trip will be the iconic Tunnel of Friendship in central Jakarta, which links the Catholic Cathedral to the Istiqlal Mosque. He will be accompanied by Indonesia's Grand Imam Nasaruddin Umar, and both will partake in interfaith gathering and sign a joint declaration. In addition, he is slated to inaugurate the first regional headquarters of the Youth Education Hub in Southeast Asia. The Holy See's ongoing engagement with China is also drawing attention. Last week, the Vatican reported its satisfaction over China's official recognition of Tianjin Bishop Melchior Shihongzhen. It is eyeing to renew the bishop appointment accord first signed with China in 2018. By arriving in Singapore, a country with a majority ethnic Chinese population, the Pope is eyeing to improve the Vatican's diplomatic ties with Beijing and step into the maritime dispute in the South China Sea. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
The government today introduced a design guide featuring 8 concepts to elevate the well-being of public housing residents. Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho said the guide reflects the opinions of residents from 26 public housing estates. Sources say Yip Wong Estate Phase 2 and Hin Fat Estate will be the first 2 projects to be built under the guidance. Mimo Singhai reports.
In his 2022 policy address, Chief Executive John Lee said the administration hopes to provide a more comfortable living environment for public housing residents. The Housing Bureau today announced 8 design concepts to enhance the well-being of those residents. The concepts are upward mobility, green living and sustainability, intergenerational and inclusive living, perception and image, family and community connection, urban integration, health and vitality, and age-friendliness. Authorities said the well-being guidance reflects the perspectives of residents.
Based on all the comments that we have been collected from the 3,000 residents, we have developed these 8 concepts, which are the key elements. These residents tell us that they really, place a lot of emphasis on these 8 elements.
Hall said a consulting team, which includes architects, urban planners, and horticulturists, was formed to handle the project. The team aims to elevate the estate environment, facilities, and public spaces, making them more human-centric. The pink hooks on the handrail under the post boxes in this model is one of the mentioned designs. Hall said this allows residents to hang their bags while checking post boxes. These seats are designed in different heights to meet the needs of children, adults, and the elderly. This colorful cow installation can be found at the entrance of the lower Altauko estate. The cow is one of the well-being renovation projects. This man, who has lived in the estate for 10 years, remembers the installation by its color.
A little bit.
Why?
Because colorful, when you go back from school, you will feel a little bit happier, just a little bit.
The Secretary said the well-being guidance is not set in stone, and authorities will keep improving and reviewing the guidelines after implementation. Memos 9, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. See you then.